Imagine you're standing on a lake. Not near a lake, not beside a lake. The year is 1450. You're in the middle of Mexico, and beneath your feet, instead of solid ground, there are wooden platforms, mud islands, and canals, stretching in every direction. Around you, pyramid temples touch the clouds. Aqueducts carry fresh water from miles away. Markets bustle with 60,000 traders every single day. This isn't Rome, this isn't Athens, this is Tenochtitlan. And at its peak, it was the largest city on earth. Here's the part that should blow your mind. A century before all of this, it didn't exist. Not a single building, not a single person. Just a swampy, uninhabitable island that nobody wanted. So how did a group of wandering homeless people rejected by every powerful nation around them take a piece of land that everyone else threw away and turn it into the most impressive city the ancient world had ever seen? That's exactly what we're about to find out. To understand what the Aztecs built, you first have to understand where they started. Around 1100 AD, a semi-nomadic group called the Mexica began migrating south through Mexico. And I want you to picture them not as a fearsome empire, but as refugees, wanderers, a people without land, without allies, and without a home. Every powerful city-state they passed through either turned them away or used them as mercenaries, cheap soldiers, willing to fight other people's wars just for a place to sleep. They were that group, the desperate ones, the ones at the bottom. But they carried something with them that no army could take away, a prophecy. Their god, Huitzilopochtli, had supposedly told them, keep walking until you see an eagle, perched on a cactus, eating a snake. That's where you build your city. That's where your empire begins. For over 200 years, they walked. They were enslaved, driven out, laughed at. And then, in 1325, on a small swampy island in Lake Texcoco that no one else wanted, someone spotted the eagle, on the cactus, eating the snake. You've seen this image. It's still on the Mexican flag today. The Mexico looked at this worthless, waterlogged island, and said, this is ours. This is where we build. Everyone around them probably thought they were crazy. They were not. Here's the engineering problem they faced on day one. The island was tiny, barely enough land to hold a village, let alone a city. The ground was soft and unstable. There was no fresh water, no stone, no timber nearby. They were surrounded by enemies on the shore. Most civilizations would have given up. The Mexica invented their way through it. They developed a system called chinampas, sometimes called floating gardens, though that name undersells what they actually were. Picture this. They drove wooden stakes into the shallow lake bed, then layered mud, aquatic vegetation, and organic material between them, building up artificial islands from scratch. Roots from the plants would eventually anchor the whole structure to the lake floor, creating solid, fertile, stable land where there had been only water before. Over decades, they kept building outward, island by island, platform by platform. They connected everything with causeways, raised roads stretching across the lake, some of them wide enough for 10 people to walk side by side. They built aqueducts that carried fresh water from mainland springs miles away. They engineered floodgates to control water levels and protect the city from seasonal floods. Let me be clear about what this means. These people didn't find a good location and build a city. They manufactured the land and then built the city on top of it. By 1400, less than 80 years after founding Tenochtitlan, the population had exploded past 100,000 people. That made it larger than London, larger than Paris, larger than any city in Europe at the time, and they were just getting started. Here's where strategy meets ambition. The Mexican knew that raw construction wasn't enough. To truly dominate, they needed political power, and they were still technically under the thumb of a neighboring kingdom called the Tapanecs. In 1428, everything changed. A ruler named Itzcoatl, along with his brilliant advisor, Tlacaelel, formed what became known as the Triple Alliance: Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlacopan. Within a decade, they had crushed the Tepanecs. Then they turned outward. What followed was one of the most aggressive territorial expansions in the ancient Americas. The Aztec Empire grew to cover most of central Mexico, over 200,000 square kilometers. Millions of people under one tribute system. And here's the economic genius of it. The Aztecs didn't always destroy the cities they conquered. They taxed them. Gold, cacao, textiles, feathers, food. Thousands of goods poured into Tenochtitlan every year from across the empire, which meant the capital kept growing richer, grander, and more powerful with every passing decade. By the time Spanish explorer Hernan Cortes arrived in Iwo, his soldiers stood at the edge of Lake Texcoco and couldn't believe what they were seeing. One of Cortes' men, Bernal Diaz, wrote that they thought they were dreaming. Towers rising from a lake, causeways packed with people, markets bigger than anything in Spain. Tenochtitlan had roughly 200,000 to 300,000 people, making it one of the 5 largest cities on the entire planet. Built in under 200 years, on land that didn't exist. Here's what I keep coming back to. The Aztecs didn't win because they had the best land. They didn't win because they had powerful friends or natural advantages. They started with nothing, less than nothing. They were outcasts on a swamp. What they had was a vision, an insane, irrational, deeply human belief that they were destined for something greater. And then they worked for generations to make that vision real. Every culture has a founding myth. Most of them are metaphors. The Aztec founding myth, you're looking at it. It's underneath modern-day Mexico City, buried under 500 years of history, still visible in the foundations archaeologists keep uncovering. The eagle, the cactus, the snake, and the city built on water, by people the world forgot to bet on. If that doesn't make you want to rethink what's possible, I do want know what will. If you want to go deeper, the fall of Tenochtitlan is one of the most heartbreaking stories in human history, and we're covering it next. Subscribe so you don't miss it. I'll see you there.